My fiancé vanished after opening a locket I thought I lost. Inside it was blood, and a truth I was never supposed to remember. Now I'm being hunted by the same man who gave me life. My father faked his death, erased my memory, and built an empire from everything I was forced to forget. This isn't just my past. It's the secret they're willing to kill for. I always believed in loyalty, people, to promises, pain. But life doesn't ask what you believe in when it's ready to change everything. My name is Elina Ward. I'm 29 years old, and up until 3 months ago I had a perfect routine. A steady job as a legal assistant, a small rented flat near the courthouse, a quiet fiancé named Jared who taught architecture at the university, and a dying orchid on my kitchen counter I couldn't keep alive. The day everything shifted was an ordinary Tuesday. The kind where the coffee shop forgets the sugar, the bus arrives late, and your inbox is a graveyard of urgent requests from people who wouldn't notice if you stopped breathing. I returned home that evening to find Jared standing in the kitchen, staring at something in his hand. It was my old locket, the one my mother gave me before she died. I hadn't seen it in over a year. He looked pale, sweaty, like he'd seen something that broke him. "Elina," he said, "where did this come from?" I told him the truth. It had been missing since we moved in together. I thought I lost it during unpacking. His voice shook when he asked, "Why is there blood inside it?" I took the locket. He wasn't wrong. Inside the clasp, behind the tiny photo of my mother, there was a dark smear. Dried. Almost black. It hadn't been there before. Jared didn't sleep that night. I heard him pacing until morning. By Wednesday afternoon he was gone. No message. No note. His phone is off. His lecture was cancelled. I filed a missing person report. The police asked the usual questions. Was he suicidal? No. Was he involved with anyone else? Not that I knew of. Had we argued? I hesitated, then said no. They wrote something down. I could see it in their eyes. Another man who chose freedom over the weight of commitment. I didn't believe it. 2 days later a letter arrived. No return address. No handwriting. Just typed words, spaced perfectly on thick ivory paper. He found what he wasn't meant to see. If you want to know the truth, don't speak to anyone else. Follow the instructions tomorrow. And wear the locket. There were no instructions inside. Nothing on the envelope. Nothing hidden in the folds. I flipped the page again and again. The next morning I found the instructions waiting for me on my bedroom mirror. I hadn't placed them there. I live alone. 12:05 p.m. Bench 7. Whitford Park. Bring no phone. Bring no bag. Wear the locket. I stared at the mirror. My face didn't look like mine. My eyes didn't blink when I told them to. Still I went. Whitford Park was too bright for secrets. Children ran past with dripping ice cream cones. Joggers floated by like the world had never hurt them. I counted the benches. Bench 7 was under a tree near the lake. I sat down. At exactly 12:05, a woman sat beside me. Black coat. No expression. Red lipstick. She didn't look at me. "You wore it," she said. "Who are you?" "That doesn't matter." "Where's Jared?" She turned her head just enough to catch my eye. "You'll get him back. But only if you're willing to trade the truth for the lie you've been living." I didn't understand. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small manila envelope. "No names. No questions. Open this at 4 p.m. Do not leave before then. If you do, Jared dies." I called out after her. People turned. She was gone. I held the envelope for hours. I sat there like a statue while strangers smiled and lovers argued, and life mocked me with its ordinary rhythm. When the clock hit 4 p.m., I tore the seal. Inside were 3 things. A photograph of Jared, blindfolded, mouth taped, in a room I didn't recognize. A list of numbers, times, and names. My name was at the top. A hotel keycard labeled Room 512. Check-in at 7 p.m. Alone. I stood in that park long after the sun had started bleeding into the lake. Then I went home, showered, packed nothing, and walked out with the locket still around my neck. At 7 p.m., I checked into room 512. The man inside was not who I expected. He was older, maybe late 50s, silver-haired, in a navy suit with hands that didn't shake even once. He sat at the desk, reading a file with my name on it. "Elina Ward," he said. "You've been very carefully watched." I didn't speak. He continued. "Your fiancé is alive. Now, what happens next depends on how much truth you're willing to carry." "Who are you?" He ignored the question and handed me another envelope. "You were chosen for a reason. You don't know it yet, but you're connected to something much larger than you realize." Jared was collateral damage. He uncovered something buried. He stood. "What you read in that envelope will begin your real life. It will end the one you thought was yours. And it will change everything." When he left, I opened the second envelope with trembling hands. Inside were documents, a medical record, a death certificate, a will, and then a name I hadn't seen in years. My mother's. The certificate said she died in 2004. But I was with her in 2011. The photo paper inside showed a woman in a hospital bed with a timestamp date just 2 months ago. And she looked exactly like my mother. My hands shook as I stared at the photo of the woman in the hospital bed. The timestamp didn't lie. It was recent. And the woman. She wasn't just similar to my mother. She was her. Same mole under the jawline. Same uneven brows. Same faint scar above the lip. The one I gave her by accident with a plastic comb when I was 4. But my mother died when I was 13. I remembered the funeral. I remembered the coffin. I remembered pressing my hand to the glass during the viewing, tracing the outline of her lifeless cheek. I remembered sobbing so hard I had to be pulled away. Now I was staring at her alive. Older. Ill. Hooked to machines. I dropped the photo. My pulse thundered in my neck. The hotel room door was closed. I hadn't heard the man leave. I hadn't heard the door open again. Yet when I turned, another envelope sat on the bed behind me. I approached it cautiously like it might bite. It was smaller than the others. Inside, a handwritten note. "She didn't die. She disappeared. And it was to protect you." Below the note was a name. Dr. Franklin Rhodes. And below that, an address. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I kept replaying everything. The locket. Jared's disappearance. The blood. The woman at the park. The hotel. The man in the navy suit. The photo of my supposedly dead mother. By morning I didn't care about logic. I only wanted answers. I drove to the address. It was a private estate. Gated. Lush trees, trimmed hedges, camera towers. I pressed the call button. "Dr. Rhodes is expecting you," a voice said. The gates opened. Inside the house, an assistant led me to a room with no windows. Clean, sterile. Scent like chemicals. Dr. Rhodes entered with slow, deliberate steps. He was in his 60s, sharp eyes, clean-shaven, dressed in a gray vest. He held a file. The same kind the man in the hotel had. "Elina," he said with ease, like we were old acquaintances. This day was always going to come. I demanded to know what was happening. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he handed me the file. Inside it was a single document. Patient profile. Elina Ward. Subject number. A7. W43. Condition. Memory implanted trauma. A. Status. Unstable recall. Observation period. 17 years. I slammed the folder shut. This is some sick mistake. Dr. Rhodes shook his head gently. You remember your mother's death because that's what you were made to believe. Her death was manufactured. A fabricated trauma placed in your memory to conceal the truth of who she is, and who you are. I couldn't breathe. My lungs refused to expand. He continued. There was an incident. 17 years ago. You witnessed something you weren't meant to. Something that could have destroyed powerful people. Your mother chose to disappear, not die. She entered protective stasis, and you were placed in a program designed to rewrite the memory. My knees buckled. Sep. You're lying, I whispered. No, he said calmly. You've been living a script. Now the script is breaking. Jared's disappearance triggered emotional instability. The locket was never lost. It was returned to you deliberately to activate latent recall. I stared at him. What did I see 17 years ago? His silence told me I wouldn't like the answer. Finally he said, "You saw a killing. And the killer was someone who now holds power far beyond what we can touch. Your memory had to be sealed, for your safety." I asked about Jared. He nodded. He was intercepted because he accessed classified files in your flat. He triggered surveillance. His safety depends on your next decision. I stood up. Where's my mother? He motioned for me to follow. I was led through a corridor, down 2 flights of stairs, through 2 sealed doors that opened only after biometric scans. Inside, a woman lay in a glass medical pod. Machines hummed beside her. I walked closer. Her eyes fluttered open. "Elina," she said weakly. My chest caved in. I fell to my knees. Tears ran without permission. She reached for me. I took her hand. "They told me you died." "I had to," she whispered. "You saw what they did. You saw who they really were. If I hadn't gone underground, they would have killed you." "Who are they?" She squeezed my hand. "The ward council." I didn't understand. She pointed toward a drawer. Inside it was a birth certificate. But I'd never known my father. I'd been told he left before I was born. I flipped the paper. Attached was another document. Graham Ward, former intelligence director, died in 2005 in plane crash. Below that, handwritten in red ink. No confirmed body. Believed alive. Possible affiliation. The ward council. My entire body turned to ice. Dr. Rhodes returned. "You were born into power. Protected from the truth. But now the council believes you are the leak." I whispered. "Leak of what?" He leaned in. "Your father never died. He runs the ward council. He ordered your memory sealed. Now he wants you back or silenced." Backed away. "Jared is bait," Rhodes said. "If you go to him, they'll use him to force your compliance. If you don't, they'll kill him. You have a choice." I stared at my mother in the pod, eyes fading into sleep again. I looked at Rhodes. "What do I do?" He placed a final envelope in my hand. "Inside is a location, a weapon, and a truth you must be willing to face. The story you thought was yours is not real. But what you do next will decide who lives." That night, I opened the final envelope. There was a photo. Not of Jared. Not of my mother. But of me. Smiling. Laughing. Holding a briefcase. Standing next to the man I had never seen in real life. My father. Alive. Smiling back at me. Timestamp just 4 months ago. I stared at the back of the photo. 6 words were written in fine black ink. "You were always on his side."